Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to KSR's Rapid Reaction of Kentucky's 84-83 loss against Vanderbilt here in historic Memorial Coliseum. This was a heartbreaker, it really was. And, that term may be a bit overplayed, maybe a bit overused in sports, but that term perfectly applies to this one. Kentucky, at the beginning of the game, they're up, they're down. I mean, it's literally a back and forth game, right? And then in the third quarter, maybe even early in the fourth, you're up by 9, right? 54-45. And you're sitting there thinking, okay, we can really make a run here. Like, we can really put ourselves in position to go get this one. And then Vandy starts to come back, and then all of a sudden you're down 72-62. And then Kentucky makes another comeback, and they're only down by 2. I want to say it's like 80-78, something like that. I don't remember the exact score at the time. And you're so close, and, there's like less than a minute left, but there's shot clock time, right? And then Asia Boone, feet behind me, feet behind where I'm at right now, fouls. And kind of at that moment, I felt like the game just kind of spun again, and spun in a way where, you saw the same thing play out that you saw all game, which is Kentucky just made unforced errors. Kentucky just made simple mistakes that ended up costing them a game, right? Vandy's a really good team, and I said before the game, I've said it even in the preseason, I thought Kentucky would lose this game. I thought Vandy would come in here and win, right? I thought before the season, before this game, and I still think Kentucky will even win on the road against Vandy, right? But, it's just a matter of when you get into the actual game itself, right? And you're not just doing the pre-talk, right? It's just so deflating to see how, man, it felt like, this place was rocking, right? Sarah Okiki was visiting, even had a Spanish flag and a We Want Sarah chant with the We Want Sarah sign, right? Student section was phenomenal. Crowd wasn't full, right? Especially with the weather and all this other stuff, but it was a rocking crowd. And when you're up by 9 there, it really felt like, okay, we're going to get this win and we're back. Like, we are all the way back. And then it just crumbles, right? It's a case of you get Tiani Key back, and first of all, how about Tiani Key, right? 27 points in her second game back from injury. 11 of 15 shooting from the field, 5 of 8 from the free throw line. Kentucky as a whole shot 11 of 16 from the free throw line, only 69%. I can't even sit here and blame the loss on free throws. Like, obviously, make a couple more, you win the game, right? If you go 13 of 16, you win the basketball game. But, Kentucky's been so bad from the free throw line, I almost feel like this one was like, okay, 11 of 16, I'll take that at this point, right? But, this team, it just feels like they've been so close yet so far for a month now, right? Really, ever since Tiani went down, and even now that she's back, it just feels like Kentucky, against Tennessee, Georgia, not as much Mississippi State because Mississippi State won by 12 in that game. But Tennessee, Georgia tonight is probably one that I'm even letting slip my mind right now. But there's just so many losses and so many mishaps, right? And now Kentucky is 18-6 and 5-5 in the SEC. And I thought about it after the game, and then I talked to some people after the game, like people here in the building, right? And now I know I'm not the only one thinking it. Now there's some merit to it. Where, first of all, it's unfortunate to say because Kentucky did it in year 1 of Kenny Brooks, but in year 2 of Kenny Brooks, I don't think Kentucky has a shot at getting the double bye in the SEC tournament anymore. They're already 5-5. If you win out, you go 11-5 again. And, first of all, winning out assumes you beat Texas and South Carolina and Vandy and Ole Miss. And that ain't happening, right? If it does, I'll put on a clown nose and get on the podcast, right? But, otherwise, you're going to drop a couple games. And, like I said, even if you win out, you're probably not going to get the double bye because Vandy's better. Tennessee is better than they were last year, right? Oklahoma is a step better than they were last year. And then, of course, South Carolina, Texas, LSU are all still super elite, right? So, I just don't think Kentucky has a shot at the double bye anymore in the SEC tournament. And of course, maybe if you want to put an inch of a positive spin on that, you could say, well, Phoenix didn't really matter last year, right? I mean, they lost anyway. So does the double bye matter that much? I mean, it's an advantage, right? And now I really think, and this is kind of the benchmark that I think Kentucky needs to set for itself every year. I think this year now at 18-6 and 5-5 in the SEC, I don't think Kentucky right now would be hosting in the NCAA tournament. And of course, with the way the games are and the way the season is going, I think that's in serious jeopardy of, I think there's a very serious chance that Kentucky doesn't host. And that's problematic because, like I said, I think that's a reasonable expectation under Kenny Brooks, right, is to host, to be a top 16 overall seed, a top 4 seed in the tournament, and we're at a point where I don't know if that's going to happen, and that sucks, right? I think right now, if the NCAA tournament started, I think Kentucky would be a 5 or a 6 seed, right? And, with this team, I know you lose a Georgia Amore, best player that we've had here since Ryan Howard. You lose Deja Lawrence, who's a dang good 2-guard, right? But you saw those pieces come back, and you just thought to yourself, man, there's no reason why we can't be better than we were last year, or at least as good. And it just hasn't happened, right? Tiani Key goes down with injury. And if that doesn't happen, I sit and wonder, like, what is, Kentucky went 2-4 in that stretch with her out. What does Kentucky go if she's playing? Do they go 4-2, 5-1? Do they go 6-0? Like, I just don't know. And it's brutal because, like I sat here and think about how the hell did Kentucky win that Oklahoma game without Tiani Key, right? Like, I mean, if they didn't win that game, right? I mean, you're saying if Kentucky didn't beat Oklahoma, which I won't even say that. Let's say Tony Morgan doesn't hit the last-second buzzer beater at LSU. You're 4-6 in the conference, right? And you are 17-7 on the year. I think this is still a good Kentucky team, and that's what sucks. We're talking about all this. I don't think they'll get the double bye. I don't know if they'll host. Man, this is a Kentucky team that just took number 7 team in the country to the last possession, right? Poor Tiani Key. I saw some lushback from fans after the game where they're like, why Tiani Key try to shoot that, they missed the 3. Tiani grabs the rebound, goes for the layup. Why'd she do that? I mean, with 1 second left, what else is Tiani Key supposed to do, right? And hell, in that instance, maybe she gets fouled. No, she's at the free throw line to tie the game. I don't love that, but that's obviously better than losing, right? So, I think she should get a break on that. But this team, I mean, I know I'm supposed to sit here and give actual thoughts and analysis or whatever, but I just genuinely feel for this group because they've been so close, right? I mean, they have been, it feels like on the doorstep of being back to where they were with, like, even while Tiani was out, like, being, like, there have been several moments, like Georgia, Tennessee, like I was saying, where tonight, even, where, like, man, you're so close to being the top 5 team again, the top, 5, 6 team again, right? And Vanderbilt's damn good, right? Michaela Blake's put up 37 points, and, I really, obviously, I guess she puts up 37 points. You have to say, well, Kentucky didn't really defend her that well. But I'm going to be honest, guys, a lot of other teams are going to give up 37 points, right? In case you don't know, I'm pretty sure she had a 55-point game. I'm pretty sure she scored like 50 points like 3 times last season. Like, Michaela Blake's is the most, I know she doesn't average the most points per game, but I think just generally she's probably the most prolific scorer in the country, right? And it's kind of terrifying that she's a sophomore because, like, she's a sophomore, and Aubrey Galvin, that point guard, she's a freshman. And I've seen the discourse online, and I kind of agree with it, where she's probably the next Georgia Amore, right? I mean, I don't know if she'll be that good, but, she's the same height and plays just like her, right? As like I was telling somebody after the game, the only difference between her and Georgia is that she's not from Australia. So it's just really unfortunate because Kentucky took a team like Vandy, like that, down to the wire and was even up by 9. right? And it just didn't happen, right? You just didn't get the win, and it just really sucks. Just to go through the stat sheet a little bit, right? Just to kind of provide a little bit of thoughts on what happened. First of all, Jordan Obi, just not her best game, right? And she only played 17 minutes, and a big part of that is because of her struggle. 3 points of 1 of 4 shooting from the field, and that's basically all she did. But, she started this game, and I echoed this thought before, on the podcast before, where I was like, well, who's going to guard Michaela Blakes? Because I don't think Jordan Obi's quick enough to do it. And then they put Asia Boone on her. And, man, I want to give Asia credit because she plays so damn hard. But, she and the rest of the team, it's not even just her, just makes these mistakes, right? Just makes these simple mistakes, these dumb mistakes, and it's really unfortunate because, again, one bounce of the ball differently, and you probably get another top 10 win. And, of course, that just didn't happen. We already talked about Tiana Key's incredible night. Claris Track had 14 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists, and unfortunately, no one's going to care, right? She only shot 5 of 9 from the field. Kenny Brooks talked about post-game how he wanted to get her more shots. He talked about how, we want to have Claris Track, shooting the ball more. Vandy put a lot of focus on her defensively, and she didn't want to force anything. But, 14, 15, and 7 is objectively an awesome game. But it just didn't happen, didn't get the win. Amelia Hassett had, again, a really good game, right? 19 points, 7 of 12 shooting, 5 of 10 shooting from the three-point line, 5 rebounds and 4 assists. And then Asia Boone, 12 points on 4 of 5 threes. I get it. Like, we're going to harp on Asia because, man, that foul sucked, and she did make some mistakes. But, she hit some really big shots that kept Kentucky in that game for a while. And when they were down big, she hit some big shots to make comebacks, right? I'm sitting there watching, and it felt like every single one was money, right? 4 or 5 from deep. So it just sucks because this team started 15-1, and things have just gone downhill, and it's really unfortunate. This is a good group. That's the other thing. They're a good group of kids, right? You see how hard they play. They want it. They want it bad. But outside of that, they're just a good basketball team. And again, like I've said, they are right there. And there's just small, unforced errors that, that are preventing this Kentucky team from being exactly who they should be. And it just sucks. Because now, on Monday, you got to play at Texas. That's a really tough game. I don't think Kentucky wins that one. You got to play Vandy on the road now, right? Ole Miss here, South Carolina here. Play Auburn and A&M, and I'm trying to remember the other games if that might be it. But it's a tough slate, and that's the beauty of the SEC, but that's also what makes it so damn difficult and so daunting, right? That is it. That's the rest of the schedule. So, you're sitting there looking at that schedule, right? And Kentucky is 18-6 right now, 5-5 in the SEC. You probably lose to Texas, right? So you're now looking at 18-7, 5-6 in the SEC. You should beat Texas A&M, so that's 19-7 and 6-6 in the SEC. Ole Miss at home, I call that a toss-up, right? And I think Kentucky wins that one. I think Kentucky is better than Ole Miss, so that puts you at 20-7 and 7-6 in the SEC. You play at Vandy, right? That's a tough game, right? They beat you here tonight. I do think Kentucky wins that, but that could be a loss too. I think it's a win, so I'll say 21-7, and then let's see, 21-7, and then what would that be? 8-7 in the SEC, 8-6 at that point. It'd be 8-6 at that point, and then you play Auburn. That's a game you should win. So Kentucky has a chance to stack some wins, right? But they also have a chance to lose some games. At the end of the day, you're sitting there looking at the schedule, and I think Kentucky should be, somewhere between 20-10 and, if you're really hopeful, 22-8. And it's confusing because, man, before the season, we would have said 22-8. That's a good year, right? Like, we would have said, hey, that's not bad. That may have even been what I predicted before the year started, and I would have felt really good about this season and this team. But, you know, there's a chance. I mean, you should beat Auburn and Ole Miss, or excuse me, Auburn and A&M. So, I think at worst, Kentucky should go 20-10, right? But I don't know. It's unfortunate because the circumstances that Kentucky's in with the double bye and hosting at home. But that's what it is, and they have to dig themselves out of a hole. So I'm Phoenix Stevens here with KSR's Rapid Reaction of Kentucky women's basketball's 84-83 loss at home. I know this is not the most fun of rapid reactions ever, but, chime in with your thoughts below in the comments. Like, why do you think Kentucky lost? What can Kentucky do to respond? What are your thoughts in general, right? If you enjoyed this or just enjoyed the women's basketball coverage in general, first of all, thank you. Second of all, I encourage you to like, comment, subscribe, do all those great things. I appreciate it. Stephen Peak especially appreciates it. We all here at KSR really do. So do those wonderful things for us and stick around. We got some post-game content coming. I will see you all next time. After the Texas game, I hope it's a win. Hope they go 3. If they beat Texas, they'd be 3-0 in top 5 games in the year so far. So, let's hope for that good juju to play out. But until then, I'm Phoenix Stevens with KSR's Rapid Reaction. I will see you all next time. Peace out. Go Cats.